Hi lovelies! I know just how hectic weeknights can be, so I've teamed up with Campbell's to bring you 3 quick, easy, and affordable weeknight dinner ideas that can all be prepared in under 30 minutes, which means less time spent in the kitchen and more time spent doing the things that you love. All of these amazing recipes taste just as good as they look, thanks to high-quality ingredients like Campbell's broths, which are made with all natural flavors. Today, we're kicking things off with a super flavorful Thai curry chicken and rice. Now, for this recipe, I'm going to be using some chicken legs that I've just divided into drums and thighs. I'm going to start by seasoning these up liberally with a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper, and then I'm going to turn my attention to the stove. In this case, I am using a lower wide bottom skillet because I'm going to be browning my chicken. So the more space you have, the better. It's important to use one with a tight fitting lid because of course we're going to be cooking our rice in this and we'll need the lid for that. I'll start by heating some oil in my skillet, and once that's nice and hot, I'll get my chicken into the pan, seasoned side down. While that's browning away, I'm going to season the other side with more salt and more pepper, and then I'm just going to let it be. It's always really tempting when you're browning chicken like this to rush it, to flip it too early, but you really want to give it time to get some nice color. That can sometimes mean between 5 or 6 minutes. You'll know it's time to flip when it releases easily from the pan. We're going to do the very same thing on the other side, cook it until it's nice and golden, and then we're going to transfer our chicken legs to a clean plate and set them aside while we get to work on prepping our veggies. For this recipe, I'm using a combination of thinly sliced red bell pepper and some julienne carrots. If you don't have a julienne tool, not to worry at all. You could go ahead and shred your carrots using a cheese grater. Now, because this pan is nice and hot already, it's only going to take a minute or two for our veggies to start to soften up, and that means it is time to start building in our flavor. In this case, I am going to do that with a combination of minced garlic. I'm also going to be adding some freshly grated ginger. As far as I'm concerned, when it comes to ginger, freshly grated is always best, so if you can manage it, definitely do so. And finally, we are going to be adding some curry paste. Now, you can usually find this in the spice section of most supermarkets. It comes in a jar, and it's basically just a really beautiful blend of flavors. We'll let this yumminess cook, stirring constantly for about a minute. The idea is to really maximize the flavor in that curry paste, that garlic, and that ginger. Once those are nice and fragrant, you can go ahead and add your rice to the pan. I'm using jasmine rice here, but you always have the option to use any white rice you like. Then it's time to add our broth. Now, I simply can't get enough of Thai food, but the cuisine is made up of a complex balance of ingredients that can be hard to get right, especially on a busy weeknight, which is why I love Campbell's new 30% less sodium Thai chicken broth. It's got all of those great flavors, but with a lot less fuss. We're going to get the entire carton into our skillet and then finish it off with a splash of coconut milk, which adds a little bit of richness and even more great flavor to our rice. We want to let our broth come to a boil, and then we'll reduce our heat to medium-low, return my chicken to the pan, and then cover this for about 15 minutes or until all of that liquid has been absorbed and the rice is fully cooked. And that's that. In absolutely no time, you'll have this really flavorful dish that I think your whole family will love. I like serving it with some fresh cilantro and some lime wedges for a little bit of tanginess. And there you go, easy breezy weeknight dinner. Who needs takeout? Next up, I've got a creamy mushroom and spinach one-pot pasta that's totally vegetarian, but will even have carnivores begging for more. For this recipe, I am starting with a nice big pot on the stove. You could use a soup pot if you wanted to, or a Dutch oven like this. I'm gonna get started by melting some butter in my pot over medium-high heat. If you're not a fan of butter, not to worry, you could also do this with a splash of olive oil. That would definitely work. Once my butter is nice and melted in my pot and nice and frothy and foamy, it is time to add my onion, and I'm also going to add my mushrooms. Now, this is a serious helping of mushrooms. I'm using about 4 full cups of quartered mushrooms. I know it may seem like a lot at first, but mushrooms tend to really shrink down when they're cooking. So we're going to cook our mushrooms, stirring them often until they've released a lot of their moisture and they're really shrunk down, maybe 5 to 6 minutes or so. Then we are going to add even more great flavor to this with some minced garlic and some fresh thyme leaves. We'll let those cook up for another 30 seconds or so, and then it'll be time to add our pasta. In this case, I'm using some rotini, but you could really use any kind of pasta you like: spaghetti, penne, linguine, whatever makes your soul happy. By now, we are a pasta point of no return, which means it is time to add our broth. Now, in this case, instead of beef or chicken broth, which would be traditional here, I am actually using Campbell's mushroom broth, which has a rich, deep flavor, but is totally vegetarian, so it's perfect for Meatless Monday. We're going to bring this mixture to a rolling boil, and then we will reduce our heat to medium, cover this, and let it cook until most of that liquid has been absorbed and the pasta is completely cooked through. Make sure you're stirring it every 2 or 3 minutes, otherwise you are going to end up with pasta sticking to the bottom of your pot, and nobody needs that in their life. Fewer dishes are better. Okay, so this has been bubbling away for about 12 minutes. You can see there's almost no liquid remaining, and those noodles are nice and soft and delicious. We're going to season it up at this point with a good helping of salt and pepper, and then I'm going to stir in a whole heaping helping of chopped spinach. Now, it may look like a lot at first, but of course we know that spinach tends to wilt down very quickly, so not to worry about that. We'll stir it until that spinach has wilted, and then for our final ingredient, we're going to add some crumbled goat cheese to this. That is going to give us our rich, creamy sauce. Now, if you are not into goat cheese, not to worry, you always have the option to use some room temperature cream cheese here instead. Both will work really well, but I absolutely love the earthy, tangy flavor of goat cheese when complemented with all of those mushrooms and that thyme. Oh, so good. I have got to say, this is the perfect weeknight dinner. Finally today, we're making a hearty and satisfying roasted garlic chicken with a creamy Asiago sauce. This is one of those dishes that just fills your house with such a beautiful aroma. Your whole family will be floating into the kitchen to find out what's for dinner. I'm going to get started by seasoning up some boneless, skinless chicken breasts with a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. Next, I'm going to heat some oil in a skillet over medium-high heat. Once that oil is nice and hot, I'm just going to transfer my chicken, season side down, into the skillet and season up the other side. Of course, we eat both sides, so both sides require some seasoning. I'll let these brown until they're nice and golden and release easily from the pan. Patience, my friends, is a virtue. Once they're ready, we can flip them over and brown them on the other side for maybe another 3 or 4 minutes, and then we can transfer them to a clean plate and get to work on our creamy Asiago sauce. To make this sauce, we want to reduce our heat to medium-low because of course that pan is already nice and hot. To the pan, I'm going to add just a little more oil, and then I'm going to fry an onion. I'm going to cook my onion for 2 or 3 minutes just until it started to soften up, and to that I'm going to add a few tablespoons of flour. The idea here is to cook the flour until it no longer has that really floury taste. The flour is actually going to be what we use to thicken this sauce. Now you'll probably notice at this point that I haven't actually added any garlic to this dish. And that's because instead of traditional chicken broth in this recipe, I'm actually using Campbell's new 30% less sodium roasted garlic chicken broth, which is already infused with loads of roasted garlic flavor. Once my broth has hit the pan, I'm just going to stir this all together for about a minute or so, or until it begins to thicken up. Then it is time to add in even more flavor. I've got some finely chopped rosemary, which is one of my favorite ingredients, and some finely grated Asiago cheese. As you'll see, very quickly this sauce becomes creamy, dreamy, and all sorts of delicious. We're going to leave our heat on medium-low to make sure that we don't burn our sauce while we get our chicken back into the pan to finish cooking. I'm going to rotate it once or twice to make sure it's well coated in that sauce, and then I'm going to pop the lid on this and let it cook away for another few minutes or until the chicken has reached a safe internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Now this stuff is absolutely incredible and it tastes as good as it smells. Of course you can serve it however you like, but I like to serve it on a bed of mashed potatoes with some steamed green beans on the side. What is not to like about that? I hope you will give all 3 of these amazing ideas a try, and if you do, be sure to tweet me, Instagram me, or Snapchat me a photo, because of course I always love seeing your kitchen creations. For more delicious recipes just like these, and for more information on these tasty Campbell's broths, visit cookwithcampbells.ca. And finally, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, because there is lots more deliciousness where this came from.